Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1. Protocol HMB-11. Written by Zephyr Landantis. Attention, Galsec Command. This is the endeavor to inspire. The voice that rang through the Galactic Security Council chamber had a very different tone than what the captain of that particular vessel usually presented. One of the counselors leaned over towards his neighbor. "What is that tone?" The cubed, gelatinous alien whispered to the tiny biped that held a surprisingly calm demeanor considering the 3-meter cube of acidic digestion was at an angle that threatened to topple over and engulf it. "Fear," the human counselor answered with his cold gaze firmly focused on the hologram sound waves used to visualize the recorded transmission in the center of the room. "We are currently transmitting from the Denabar system, where a previously undetected station has opened fire. Long-range weaponry has been forcefully disabled, and our point defense capabilities are strained to their maximum capacity." The transmission continued. "Initial scans have revealed a multitude of cross-species technologies, and preliminary analysis has a high likelihood of this being a pirate station. We've suffered heavy casualties and are venting atmosphere from several decks. Our FTL capacity has gone and, what is it, Lieutenant? I'm recording a transmission to the Council." The extended pause in the recording caused a large number of counselors to shift uncomfortably in their seat. The human counselor merely leaned forward and placed his elbows on the table surface in front of it, resting his chin on clenched right hand. "He's doing what? I've never heard of that protocol, no. I will not relay a message from a Grade 2 engineer to the Council." The fist under the human counselor's chin opened up to be a palm that gently massaged the eyelids of the human with its thumb and ring finger, before flaring out to support the drooping head of the counselor as a loud sigh escaped the human female. "Pause, play check." The first chancellor stopped the recording. "Is the human representative functional?" Amy raised her head and saw that every counselor in the chamber, all 370 of them, were observing her. "Yes, First Chancellor, I'm functional. We recognize that the endeavor to inspire as a human crew member as your first contribution to the Galsec fleet, but rest assured that we will do anything in our—" "Just continue the recording, First Chancellor. We'll handle the politics after we have a full picture, please." Amy gestured towards the projector. The Chancellor nodded solemnly. "A valid point, Counselor," it said, quickly followed by, "Resume playback." "What? He's going to what? 11? Why should I be versed in some obscure Earth literature? We'll stop him then." The recorder cut off. The council room was very quiet, and slowly the number of eyes that focused on Amy grew, until the point where she definitely knew that she was the only one that wasn't staring at her. "Counselor?" The first counselor called her attention. "I feel that you know something that we don't." "I do." Amy rose from her seat. "The human crew member of the endeavor to inspire is a Grade 2 engineer. To be more precise, it is a male Grade 2 technical engineer who has spent 9 months being bored in his workshop." She sighed audibly. "When the endeavor lost its offensive capabilities, he evoked a human emergency protocol, codenamed HMB. Amy tried her best to remain focused. "This protocol has been established as the primary reason females have longer lifespans than males of our species." That statement made every counselor twitch uncomfortably in their seats. "It has, however, also proven itself as the primary logic behind our most successful endeavors," Amy explained, "like hunting, fire, aviation, astrogation, and FTL." "Did you not achieve astrogation by placing a human on top of a pile of explosives? I believe I watched a human comedy about that," a counselor from the other side of the chamber asked. "Documentary. And yes, we did put a human male on the largest canister of explosives to break orbit," Amy sighed. "That seems unnecessarily reckless," the counselor replied with a grin that froze as Amy replied, "We also achieved FTL by increasing the amount of explosives to the point where reality gave up." The room went silent as a polite knock on the entry broke the conversation. "Enter." The first chancellor was not used to the very human gesture of knocking on the door. One of Amy's aides entered the room. Duck nodded a silent apology to the counselors and made an effort to sneak run to her side, handing her a tablet and then sprinting back to the door and closed it behind them. Amy looked at the tablet and then at the first counselor. "When did the council receive the communications from the endeavor to inspire?" 3 hours ago, the alien replied. Why? My office has received this message. She waved the tablet and gestured towards the projector. May I? If it holds relevance, the First Chancellor replied. Amy connected the tablet remotely and pressed play. The hologram shifted to project the face of a human male. Right, engineer 2nd grade. Why do I even bother? Hi, Amy, it's me, Mac. The human smiled as it broke every communications regulation in existence. I think the captain is pretty pissed at this moment, so I figured I'd send this message to you before it finds me. We flew directly into a system that had produced an exorbitant number of wrecks to find out why ships are getting damaged. The male physically gestured with air quotes. So dumbass does a blind jump into a potentially hostile system, and lo and behold, we get shot at. What a surprise! Mac didn't look least bit surprised as he continued. The barge knew what they were doing, targeting our weapons and FTL propulsion first. Then they simply peppered us with light ordnance in order to overwhelm the point defense. So I evoked protocol HMB-11. The First Counselor paused the playback. The engineer bypassed the chain of command. It shook its limb that occupied its eye stalks angrily. Amy wasn't paying attention. She was leafing through a digital version of the HMB protocol codes and stopped with shock expression on her face. With her mouth agape, she looked up at the counselors and shifted her eyes slowly to meet the gaze of the First Counselor. I believe we should dispatch a rescue ship to collect the crew of the Endeavour, she said slowly, as she regained control of her facial features. What makes you think they're still alive? A glob on her right asked out loud. She pressed the play icon on her screen. I rigged the engine section for remote operation and disconnected the FTL compartment, aimed it at the station and kicked it into Terran escape velocity. We're dead in the water, but still kicking. The projected face snapped to one side and concerned expression washed over it. Crap! Gotta go! Love you, sis! It bid a farewell before the recording ended. Amy looked at her galactic colleagues with a wide grin on her face. Then she slowly turned to look at the gelatinous counselor on her right. Everything is airdroppable. Once, she smiled politely. End of story. Story number 2. Strange Galaxy, written by Voidy Boy. We thought we had seen everything. We saw stars implode, planets collapse, entire star systems wiped off the face of existence. Till we found a little star system called Sol, or rather, what was left of it. We were traveling through the supernova of star and debris. It was beautiful, the colors, the heat, and the gases moving about. Then we found something floating about in the void. It was a being, humanoid, and alone. If this was not shocking enough, it was alive and very much active without any protection against the coldness of space. It reached to our presence and made movements trying to direct us towards it. Dumbfounded, we slowly approached, carefully extracting it from the void. Once it entered the docking bay, it spoke to us in an unknown language. Our xenobiologists were the first to approach, studying it. They stated it was a carbon-based being and was not a machine in any sort. All the while, it made more and more attempts to talk. It was alive when it shouldn't have been. It was standing when it should have been disengaged by a supernova. The next to arrive were the translators, whom after much trial and deliberation were able to translate the being's language. It was called a human from the planet called Earth that was in orbit of Sol. We questioned how it had survived the supernova, let alone survived the vacuum of space. It stated it had made a pact of sorts with an ancient being that granted the human immortality. Before it could explain further, from behind a storage unit a small, slimy being appeared, its eyes at the end of the stalk-like things, slowly approaching the human. The human, now in a fearful state, pushed us out of the way as he ran to the nearest ship in the docking bay and fired its engines, and without a second passing, it broke out of the docking bay with a great force and entered warp. The small being slowly made its way to the nearest ship, and inexplicably managed to operate it, and left as suddenly as the human. We never saw the two again. However, reports have been coming in from across the galaxy about a human forever on the run from a snail. End of story. I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Casper Arnholt, Cam Maxwell, it's difficult to pronounce, Lord Arishikal, Dragzoon WRE, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.